I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today is Monday, October 16, 2017. We're here for the purpose of the regular meeting of the Elmhurst City Council. Due to a little miscommunication, I have the Jefferson Elementary School Cub Scout Pack listed as leading the pledge. They will be leading the pledge on November 6th. So yours truly is going to do it. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask you to call the roll.
Honquist. Absent. Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Brennan.
Here.
Sabatino.
Here.
Boyder.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Polumsky.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Toledo.
Here.
York.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Park.
Here.
13 present, 1 absent.
13 present, 1 absent. We have a quorum. We are in session. On to agenda item 2, receipt of written communication from the public. At this time, is there anyone in the audience who has any written communication they wish to submit? Please raise your hand if you have any written communication. Seeing none, we'll go on to public forum. This is an opportunity during our meeting for anyone in the audience to address the council, specifically the chair, on any issue you may choose. Once your name is called, we ask that you go over to the microphone, my right, your left, right there behind the chief. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes out of respect for other people that may want to speak this evening, and also out of respect for the work that we need to get done. I will keep time, and if you go over your 3 minutes, I will give you a gentle reminder. When you get to the microphone, we are recording this, so we ask that you state your name. Address is optional. Clerk Spencer, at this time, is there anybody who has signed up for public forum?
Yes, Mayor. We'll start with Peter Pezza.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Peter Pezza. I live at 887 South York Road. I was here in March with a problem with my storm sewer in my backyard. The city inadvertently cut it off when they were doing lining of the mains. And I came in and I told my problem, and the mayor directed me to somebody to take care of it. And my neighbor's house was for sale, and he was a little more persistent than me. I kind of backed off a little bit and let the guys do their job. Since then, we've had a new neighbor move in. The house sold next door. And my storm sewer has not been connected, nor has the resolve that was, I guess, on the books to be taken care of through my neighbor's house. And now, right now, I'm sitting with about 4 feet of water in my backyard. The village came out Saturday night and pumped me out, or else the water would have been coming onto York Road. That's how bad it was. So they spent 8 hours, I think, pumping out my backyard, and you can come by and take a look at the water that's still in my yard. But my main concern now is because I called again today. I try not to press the point as much as, you know, the city is going to take care of it, but nobody's doing anything. Right now, I have a pipe that goes to the front of the street, and it is holding pressure somewhere in the ground, and hopefully it's not on my foundation. And that's where I'm at today. You know, this is unacceptable for the resolution that came up with the city. I want the storm sewer that was in my yard taken out. They were gonna put the new storm sewer in my neighbor's property, and I found that out because my neighbor told me, not because I called the village and asked for, you know, this to be taken care of. I found out because my neighbor didn't want to give over 5 feet of his easement as he's moving out of Elmhurst. So my new neighbor, who just moved in a couple of weeks ago, has to give up 5 feet of his easement in order for this to work. And it's now that there's probably some kind of a cavern underneath my house or in the neighbors, because up until this last storm, I haven't had any water. I know there's been a drought, I know we're down on water, but we've had rains, and none of it has come up until this storm. So somewhere along my old storm line, there has to be a cavern, because the water's pooling somewhere, and before my old neighbor moved, he was getting seepage in his house. My basement is finished, so I can't see the walls. I don't know, and I don't have a sump pump, so I'm not pumping any water out around my foundation. So there's water probably 15 feet up from my back fence towards my house. And another thing is I don't know if, I've heard it from a few other people that there is a ordinance that your water lines from your backyard need to be 15 feet off the back of your property. I have both my neighbors pumping water into my backyard. The pipes are at the fence where we connect each other's yards, and I'm not gonna talk to them again, because they know, I've talked to people from the village, they were told to please, during this crisis, put the water out to the front.
Mr. Pezza, you're over your 3 minutes. I'd ask you to wrap up your comments, please.
Can somebody please help? I need help with this. I have probably thousands of gallons of water sitting on my foundation. This should have been resolved months ago, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for some resolution. Thank you.
Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys.
Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys. Little story tonight, gentlemen. A little over a week ago, I was stuck on 83, so I came down west. About a block from there, I was stopped because some stupid contractor was sawing the concrete street just before North Avenue. You couldn't see buildings on either side, and the only reason you knew saws were running is because of the sheer noise. Traffic was tied up on North Avenue, tied up on West, and you couldn't see the buildings on either side of the street for the cement dust and silica sand. I finally got through that intersection. North Avenue was screwed up. Left about 1 o'clock. Where was our friend? Back on West, just before Armitage. Dry cutting again. A cloud of goddamn concrete dust and sand flying all over everybody's home. Figured this got to end sometime. It didn't. I got back. I came up west from the north. Where was our friendly contractor? Dry cutting that concrete street of West. Another cloud, pouring cement and sand dust all over people's homes. Nobody with a mask on. If OSHA would have been there, the guy would have been thrown in jail. Called the city. Talked to a nice secretary. Well, what's the name of the contractor? You can't see it. You can see his truck. You can't see his name because it's all covered up. I don't care if the guy was working for the federal government, the state, the county, township, or the city. But I can't hardly believe that nobody in this administration knew that a guy was saw cutting a concrete slab on West without water, covering up homes, filling the air with cement dust and silica sand, and he's getting away with it, and he ties up North Avenue, and nobody does anything about it. You couldn't even see the buildings on either side of the street. This council keeps on telling me the administration fills them in. That's how you vote on things. Well, if you voted for this contractor, whoever advised it is a goddamn idiot.
Mr. Pagash, I've had enough of your foul language. You're at your 3 minutes. If you want to continue to address this council, you will do so in a respectful manner. Otherwise, I will ask you to leave. Do you understand?
Mayor, let
Do
me
you
explain something to you. When
understand?
this city puts the residents and the people that drive on West
Mr. Pagash,
in
you're at
that
your 3 minutes.
predicament, let's put it this way.
You're at your 3 minutes.
I know I'm always after 3 minutes, but it really showed one thing to me. This administration, so-called administration, cares very little for the people's health or welfare of this town.
Elizabeth Ambrosi.
Hi, everyone. Elizabeth Ambrosi, 257 Oak Street in Elmhurst. I'm here with a quick request, hopefully doable. So I'm here to ask you guys to please consider or do something to perhaps pass some kind of an ordinance, law, whatever it's called, for builders when they build houses. They pretty much strip the entire property, private property, I understand, but they stripped of all trees, sometimes really nice, big, mature trees. And they, for the most part, as I've noticed, do not replant the trees. So on my street, in the past few months, I've had 2 houses go down and 2 houses directly behind my home. And again, all the trees were totally torn out, and 2 of the properties are already about to be sold. None of them have even 1 tree planted, just a little bit of shrubbery, and I assume the other 2 will have the same thing. So I know some other cities around us have ordinances that developers, when they tear out a healthy, mature tree, that they have to replace that tree, and I would love for us to have that policy as well. I'm sure I don't have to explain why. I mean, trees are beautiful, they beautify our city. It's just a green thing to do. So I'll follow up with my elder people in the next day or 2 and see if this is possible and what needs to be done and so forth. And on the same note, just something to add to that, I think, you guys do a great job, but I really think we're behind when it comes to sustainability, green living, promoting all of that kind of stuff. Some cities have sustainability committees where they actually promote that stuff in their city for businesses and for residents, and I would love to see that happen in Elmhurst. We've got committees like that at Elmhurst College, at York High School, our park district, the garden club. Our park district, for instance, I just saw in the paper, they're having some park by the Prairie Path that they're not going to be using fertilizers, so they're trying to go green, which I think is fabulous. And so again, just to sum it all up, I love the idea of us being a little bit more green, and this whole tree issue. We've had, the bug insect thing a few years ago where we lost a lot of trees, and then because of the development, we're losing a lot of trees, and I'd hate for us to continue losing them and losing the beauty of the town.
Kathleen Sullivan.
Kathleen Sullivan. 1 year ago, the Cubs had not won a World Series in our lifetime, and I think you had 1 project completed and 5 pending, or 5 under construction and 1 pending for detention. And this weekend, they got their first really big test, and it was very successful. So we have great thanks to you for pursuing all of that. I know it wasn't always easy for any of us, and it was really nice to see not only people who were benefiting saying good things, but even people who live next to Golden Meadows posted some nice comments, as well as ran into people. There was a lot of people visiting the quarry to watch that this weekend from the new viewing area, which I know isn't yours, but there were a lot of people there that said, oh, I live over by this project or that project. I just want to see my tax dollars at work. Every different family we ran into said the same thing. And there was a lot of positive things that were said by a lot of different people that I didn't even know their names prior to this weekend. So you got a lot of really good press this weekend. Thank you.
She's the last one that signed in, Mayor.
Okay, that's it for public forum for those who signed up. At this time, is there anybody who did not have an opportunity to sign in on our sign-up sheet but wishes to address the council at this time? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, that concludes public forum for the meeting. Any announcements from the dais? Agenda item 4. I'll go to Alderman Leader first, then Alderman Polomsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, I have the rare privilege and high honor to announce that the Elmhurst American Legion, THB, Post 187, cordially, pardon me,
Virtually.
invites you to our second annual military ball in honor of the active members and veterans of our armed forces on Saturday, November 11th, appropriately, 2017, beginning at 6 p.m. at the Normandy Room, 310 West Butterfield Road. This is a formal gala suffused with moving pomp, pageantry, and ceremony, as well as a delightful and fun celebration of life and the living, and a solemn remembrance of those men and women no longer able to take their place in harm's way in defense of the country. For those who have never attended a military ball, be prepared for a remarkable, uplifting, and unique experience. The evening will include cocktails, appetizers, wine, fine dining, music, entertainment, and dancing. The whole purpose of the ball is to fund the Legion's wide-ranging and far-reaching charitable mission. Veterans in need who are hungry, homeless, dying without even a grave and a proper burial will benefit. Veterans who are sick or disabled will benefit. Families of veterans will benefit. Veterans ravaged by the living hell of post-traumatic stress disorder will benefit. Deserving local students who receive college scholarships from the Legion will benefit. 250 lonely young Navy boot camp trainees, most away from home for the first time in their lives, will be treated, feasted, and honored by a gala day of celebration on Thanksgiving will benefit. No veteran in need or want is ever turned away from the Legion. I could go on and on. You all get the idea. If the Elmhurst American Legion's charitable outreach is not worth supporting, then no charity is worth supporting. The Legion is a 501c3 charitable organization. Tickets are $125 per person. Tables of 8 are $1,000. For those who wish to attend or to make a charitable and fully deductible donation, please contact the American Legion at 310 West Butterfield Road, 630-833-7800, 630-833-7800. This is an opportunity on the part of all of us to make a shining statement that we support our active serving military and our veterans. For the heart of the American Republic, representative government, and civilized order, our lives and liberty, all we hold dear, is due to them and their sacrifices. See you all at the ball. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Leader, might be the best announcement I've ever heard. Alderman Palomsky, you have the luxury of following that announcement.
Always.
I assume yours is equally as eloquent.
Never as eloquent as Alderman Leader. I'll do my best. The Elmhurst Commission on Youth is welcoming Brent Sopel, former Blackhawk, to present a program on disability awareness, or learning disability awareness, and alcohol and drug addiction recovery. This will be on Wednesday, October 25th, 7 until 8:30 p.m. at York High School in the Campbell Gym. It's considered to be most appropriate for 6th grade and up.
Great. Any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll move on to consent agenda. At this time, is there anything on the consent agenda, any item, that any alderman wishes to see removed to provide further comment or vote no? Any items on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda in its entirety. Motion by Alderman York, second by Alderman Brennan. Clerk Spencer.
Honquist, absent. Kennedy,
Yes. Aye. Pass.
Mulliner,
Aye.
Brennan,
Aye.
Sabatino,
Aye.
Deuter,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Leader,
Aye.
Palomsky,
Aye.
Aye.
Graham, DeLudo,
Aye.
York,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Park.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
13 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Consent agenda in its entirety is approved. On to agenda item 6, committee reports. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask that you read the recommendation.
Report, recommendation. I don't think I have a recommendation. There it is. Okay, thank you. I will read this. It is therefore the recommendation of the Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee that the city, excuse me, that the city provide funding assistance in the amount of $75,000 as prescribed above during 2018 for special increased physical services in the CBD contingent on the Elmhurst City Center approving a 2017 tax levy rate of 1.8% for SSA number 6. Respectfully submitted, Finance, Council and Affairs and Administrative Services Committee, and it's signed by Kevin L. York, Chairman, Mark P. Sabatino, Vice Chairman, Tina Park, 5th Ward Alderman, and Mike Brennan, 7th Ward Alderman.
Okay, to put this before council, I will ask for a motion to approve the report and recommendation as read. Motion by Alderman York, second by Alderman Sabatino. Alderman York, your report.
Thank you, Your Honor. So the City Council will recall this being on the agenda a year ago. It's pretty much a similar request and that was brought forth by the City Center. I think a couple things that are worth explanation are the fact that we're going to bring, once we know the actual numbers, we're doing all this kind of on estimates of EAV growth and tax rates and everything, but once we know the actual numbers, we'll do a reconciliation process on the back side of this to square everything up. It's also worth noting that as time goes on, the City Center increases the amount of spending, and our assistance is basically related to planters, the seasonal planters, and the holiday lighting, those things that we hear the most about from residents when they're not done properly. So they continue to increase the spending on those items, going from a 2017 current budget of about $148,000 up to $160,000 for next year. So I just wanted to bring that up. They did make a presentation. They are increasing the amount of planters and cycles and all these things to keep the downtown looking great, to generate sales taxes for us, and ask for your support for this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman York. Any questions? Alderman Bram?
Thank you. Excuse me. I remember when we as a council decided that we were not going to continue the overlay SSA and that we were going to have further consideration down the line, which I believe this report states. I guess I'm kind of unclear, if you will, on we're stating that we would provide $75,000 of support for physical services, and Alderman York just explained what those would be, and the report does as well, in regards to holiday lighting and planters, et cetera. My understanding in years past, and I understand in regards to the overlay SSA not being in place today, but that has always been the responsibility of City Center. 1 year when the holiday lights were, I will say, insufficient, there was public outcry, and rightfully so, and the city stepped up to contribute to pretty much boost the holiday lighting. It now seems to be the trend, and that's what this, I take this recommendation to be, is that for the last couple of years, as well as what's being recommended here moving forward, that the city is paying for services, physical or not, that has been under the mission of the city center. So I guess I'm just kind of unclear on why there is a need to have the city pay that $75,000 and why that couldn't be encompassed in the city center budget. If they can't expand the services, I respect that, but then we don't expand the services. I'm not sure why the city needs to contribute to those services.
Okay, any additional comments? Alderman Dunn?
Yeah, I just want to, I was reviewing this issue for several years while I was on the Finance Committee, and I received quite a few of those complaints about the tail off in some of the attractive features of downtown, the lighting and the planters in particular. It's obvious that the Elmhurst residents really have a high-level interest in that and want to see a very nice and presentable downtown. And I think that same attitude was echoed. We had a review of the trolley at our last Public Affairs and Safety meeting. A lot of positive comments from those, mostly residents that rode it, but also out-of-town folks. And I just, my sense is, and my observation is that this is something that really is valuable, and while we're waiting for the developments in the downtown area to get underway and increase the EAV, there is a valid reason for the city to put a small subsidy into those very valuable and desirable features of the downtown. So I support this report completely. Thanks.
Okay, any other comments? All right, seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to call the vote.
Lundquist, absent. Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Sabatino.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Polemski.
Aye.
Graham.
No.
Toledo.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Park.
Aye.
12 ayes, 1 nays, 1 absent.
12 ayes, 1 nay, motion carries. Agenda item 6.1, report out of finance is approved. On to agenda item 7, reports and recommendations. 7.1, Mayor Morley, that's me. I've got a couple of things this evening. First of all, as I believe everybody who was in town recognizes that we had a significant rain event starting basically in the morning on Saturday, and it ran all the way till the morning on Sunday. We recorded as high as 7.6 inches of rain in a 24-hour period at certain parts of the city of Elmhurst. And to give you an idea what kind of weather we're dealing with, we had other parts of Elmhurst that registered almost 3 inches less. But 7.6 inches in 24 hours is pretty significant. That puts this event somewhere between a 50 and 100-year event. We use that as just a measure. There's nobody here who believes we're not going to get this rain again in 50 or 100 years, since I think we're on storm number 8 since I've been elected. But just to give you an idea, significant event happened. I certainly want to thank all the members of Elmhurst Police Department, Public Works, Fire Department, staff. They all work overtime when this kind of thing is heading our way, and we always cross our finger that it's going to miss us, and when it doesn't, we put things in action. Couple of other things, never fails to, would be prudent to mention, is that the quarry took on water. I used to say that the only purpose of the quarry was for, to keep the creek in its banks. That's no longer the case, as council will recall. The Tree Streets project that has a bunch of big giant pipes running about 3 or 4 blocks and runs right underneath the observation point that earlier Ms. Sullivan spoke about. That also dumps into the quarry. But it's important to note that both the creek and water spilling into the quarry and the pipe coming from the Tree Streets going into the quarry, neither one has a magic button, neither one has a gate. It automatically happens, so we don't have to turn anything on or open anything. There is an option for us to increase the flow of water in the creek, from the creek into the quarry, but if we did nothing without any human intervention, the quarry would take on water and the creek would stay within its banks, and has done so for the last 30 years. The other thing is the underpass took water as designed. When that underpass was put in about 35 years ago, 42 years ago, the approximate cost of putting that in, I'm just going to give you a rough idea, the approximate cost was about $20 million. At the time, the city had the option of running a pipe from the underpass all the way to the quarry, but that would have increased the entire project by 50%. So that wasn't done at that time, and it was determined that overflow from the streets around the underpass would specifically flow into the underpass and take water. So that is by design when that happens. We don't like it when it happens, but that is by design. The various projects around town worked to various degrees. Again, like I said, we had 7.6 inches of water in some places and 4-point-some inches in other places. But I think I wasn't the only one who was driving around during that storm, clearing drains, what do you call it? Inlets. But I was also checking the various projects we had, and just in general, you could tell that there was a certain amount of pressure off of the system. So this was our first significant test. I'm very happy that we seemed to pass it. I'm not saying we passed it with flying colors, but I know relief was had because of the projects we did. One other thing of note, we do have 5,500 inlets in town. Those are those little metal grates on the curb, 5,500 inlets. Now, on a pretty regular rotation, we go around and we lift off that cover and we stick a giant pipe down there and we kind of root out all the garbage that gets collected over a certain amount of time. And that's on a rotation. The other thing that happens is that we have leaves, certainly this time of year, leaves will fall and get caught in those drains. Now, the simple fact of the matter is between the time the leaves fall and a storm might show up, we simply do not have the manpower to unclog 5,500 inlets. It's just not possible. We'd have to have a crew of thousands, literally, to get that done before. But what we do is we do send our street sweepers out. We do hit the low-lying areas where we, places that have potential for backing up. But we do ask our residents for help to try to be vigilant in scooping out and keeping those clear, and we appreciate the residents who do. I will say this is the first time since I've been an elected official that I officially received more compliments than complaints after a storm. It's very exciting. It's a new thing for me. Didn't know really how to handle it. However, I will say this. While I'm very happy to receive those compliments and very happy and proud of the work that we've done, we still have some significant work to do. There's no question about it. We can't take our foot off the gas. We have a couple of pockets around town that still have not been addressed. We can address those through infrastructure, and we can address those through projects. Brief update, as council is aware, I sent a letter to Shannon Ebner, President Ebner of the school board, requesting a public meeting. I can tell you, and I think I sent all of you a copy, my offer to meet in public was rejected, which disappoints me. I will be following up with Ms. Ebner, reiterating my request for a public meeting. I'm going to include a couple of things in this letter to Ms. Ebner. One specifically is if there's any concern about how the meeting is run, I would offer to bring in a mutually agreed upon mediator. So the city doesn't have to run the meeting, schools don't have to run the meeting. Happy to have a mutually agreed upon mediator come in and help run the meeting. But as I said in the past, and I firmly believe that these aren't city dollars and city land or school dollars and school land. This is Elmhurst residents and it's their land. So this is a unique situation where I think we're both on the same side. And I'll reiterate that I think the best way to get this done, because it has taken a while, is to have a meeting in public to discuss the disposition of those projects. Specifically, I'm going to be asking, because honestly, I couldn't tell you. If you asked me what the status is of the York project or the Jackson project, I could not tell you what the school district would require for us to get those done. We've been talking to them for, well, we did a study back in 2010, if that gives you an idea. And we've been talking to them since the day I was elected as mayor. So I don't know the status of those two projects. I will be sending a letter to President Ebner and Superintendent Moyer to try to restart those talks again. We had an FAA meeting. For those of you who've attended meetings lately, you know that the fly quiet rotation has been something of great discussion. The third fly quiet rotation officially ended, I believe, Saturday. That is a program that was implemented by the CDA at the recommendation of the ONCC while we continue with the OMP. Pretty good, huh? Anyway, basically what it is while the O'Hare Modernization Plan continues its build-out, there has been an effort to share the rotation and some of the noise. Fly Quiet Rotation 3 ended on Saturday. Last Tuesday, 2 weeks ago Tuesday, the 3rd, we had the FAA in here. FAA is the federal agency that really regulates all of this. We did an hour and 15-minute presentation and Q&A. If you go onto our city website and you go to, I think it's Elmhurst TV on YouTube, you can click on the little YouTube button on the city website, or you can go on YouTube and type in Elmhurst TV. The entire hour and 15-minute FAA meeting is there. It was one where they spoke and we took questions from the audience. I think we literally got over 3 dozen questions from the audience. FAA did what they could to address those questions at the meeting, but we also transcribed all of the questions that we got. Some were repeats, but we aggregated them, and we have sent all of those questions to the FAA. They committed to respond to those in writing. They did it last time. It took them about, I don't know, 8 weeks maybe to get back to us, but they did. So it was a very good meeting, very informative. We have sent them the questions. It's online. The big question that I would say was answered, that we got the most information on, is that there is about a 2.5 to 3 year break right now at O'Hare before the next step of the O'Hare Modernization Plan, where they're going to add a couple of runways, maybe extend a runway. The details are online. But there's about a 2.5 to 3 year break in that, and the question is whether or not there's going to be a fly quiet runway rotation at night or not. As of right now, there is not one on the plans, so they revert back to their old fly quiet plan that's 20 or 30 years old. The FAA did say that they would consider and are anticipating a fly quiet rotation request from the CDA, comes from O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission, the ONCC, and then gets approved by them, goes to the CNA or CDA, and then up to the FAA. The FAA is anticipating a submission of a suggestion for a runway rotation. They told us at the meeting that a fair estimate for the amount of time it takes to review a plan is 1 year. Clarified that, asked it more than once, and the FAA said at the meeting that it will take up to 1 year to review a fly quiet rotation. In that 1 year, per the FAA, there should be no more fly quiet rotations. They should go back to the old fly quiet plan of 20 years ago, which is basically use east-west as much as possible, fly planes over the interstate, stuff like that. But the rotation, if what was said at the FAA meeting is correct, the rotation should be on hold for at least a minimum of a year. Now, like I said, there's about a 2.5 to 3 year gap for this build-out. There could possibly at some point be a rotation that would go into place to fill whatever's left of that 2.5 to 3 year build-out, pause, and then that would go away again once the O'Hare modernization plan and the runway rotation build-out would begin. That's the belief that the plan would happen. They haven't submitted it yet, so we don't know. I know Alderman Dunn has more information on this. I'm hoping to steal too much of his thunder. Anyway, FAA meetings online, questions, once we get them, the responses from the FAA, we will publish them like we did last time. Last point, a little bit of good news. As council may recall, about 2 or 3 years ago, I met with Congressman Quigley and asked him for help in updating our metro station. And at the time, he asked me a very silly question, which was, hey, what's your plan? I said, well, we'd like to make it better. And he said, well, we need more of a plan than that. If you're going to get any help from the government, you actually have to have a plan. Well, in what I would consider lightning speed, we have done some studies, we've done input from the public, and we've come up with an initial plan, and we have applied for grant dollars. The estimate for the metro station remodel is somewhere between $14 and $18 million. I'm happy to say, through a lot of hard work from staff, Elmhurst received notice that we are going to be awarded a $10 million grant. So well over 50% of the project would be paid for. This is out of CMAQ, which is a portion of CMAP. Is that right?
It's a grant administered by CMAP.
Okay, it's a grant. CMAQ is the grant. It's administered by CMAP. Anyway, very pleased to announce that $10 million of that project has been awarded. Staff continues to pursue other options to fund that program, that build out outside of paying it for ourselves. So that's it. I know it's a rather long report, but I appreciate your patience. City Manager Grabowski.
Thank you. A couple items before I get to the capital expenditure budget. I too would like to thank staff for all their efforts on Saturday, certainly the people out in the field who were doing that. There was a number of us that were up late Saturday night kind of monitoring everything as well via text, and I know that a lot of aldermen were doing the same, so thank you all for your reports as well. We appreciated that. Yesterday, the fire department had an open house, and I want to thank Chief Freeman and Deputy Chief Anishevitz, and most importantly, your Executive Assistant Lauren Wolf, because we know she did all the work. For those who were able to stop by, it was a record crowd at the fire station, so we're very pleased with the turnout. So thank you to all of the members of the fire department who participated in that. You may have seen on the website that the police department is hosting a drug take-back day on October 28th. I'd appreciate if you could spread the word on that. That's really a drive-through option, as I understand it, Chief. And so if you just pull in the PD parking lot, someone will greet you at your car, and you can drop off whatever unused prescription drugs that you have to get them out of the hands of anybody who shouldn't use them, and also to keep them out of the waste stream. And then the last item before the KEB is tomorrow morning, the City Center will host the annual meeting. That is here at City Hall in Conference Room 2. All are welcome. There's a fantastic speaker lined up. That would be Aaron, not me. Just kidding. It is me, and it was Mike Kopp and Aaron. And we're going to update the City Center on projects that are going on, and then also take questions from the members. So that starts at 8 o'clock, I believe. 8 o'clock. So now, what everybody's been waiting for, I'm sure, the KEB, if I could get, oh, Tom, remote's not working here.
Push it harder.
Bang it. There we go. Okay. So a couple weeks ago, we handed out the capital expenditure budget to the council. It's my understanding that Public Works Committee is going to take up questions on this. They were going to at the last meeting, but that got canceled because of quorum issues. So it's my understanding that the next one, there will be a review of that.
That is correct.
Tom, this remote's not working, so you are going to have to be the clicker, unfortunately. Yep, not working. So, just so everybody has an idea, the budget schedule starts in earnest in June by collecting a lot of data and talking with the departments. The first part of that is always putting the KEB together, the 5-year plan that we have. You see that we distributed that, and here we are at October 16 for the review of that. The objective of that is to identify and create a long-term plan. We go 5 years out, which are necessary to maintain the physical assets of the city. Those are identified as expenditures over $25,000 that result in acquisition or construction of fixed assets, intended to be held for at least a period of 10 years. We classify these expenditures in a couple of ways. First, by their importance as essential, necessary replacement of facilities to improve the safety, result in increased productivity or energy reduction, and then contribute to the economic development of the city. And then we qualify them in a priority as essential and immediate, essential but can be delayed, optional but beneficial, and then optional in social, cultural, or aesthetic ways. And then we further break that down in this table, as you can see, by priority and by year. In 2018, for example, it's a total of $40.6 million, and then in the bottom right corner, we're talking the entire CAB of almost $190 million. So we further break down the expenditures a little bit by department, not necessarily directly by department, but you see significant expenditures in the utility fund of $75 million. Coming around counterclockwise, you have the stormwater fund at $29 million, as the mayor said. We still have some work to do on that. And then further to the general fund, and then we further break that down more so by department into public safety, public works, excuse me, and then IT. Then we have the revenue side of that, starting with the GO bonds and loans, which is the biggest piece of the pie. That can be IEPA loans or different bonds that we issue. And then working around counterclockwise, you have general fund, contribution, grants, as the mayor just stated, and then the municipal utility fund. This slide takes more significance this year in how we get those revenue sources, and I say that because of the state cuts that we're going to experience. As you see, state income tax is 80%. We take 80% of the state income tax and use it to fund the capital improvement fund, along with home rule sales tax. We take 33% of that. If you recall, the state is cutting that for us. They are keeping some of our revenues. They took a 10% reduction for 1 year in the income tax, and then a permanent 2% reduction in sales tax. And so of that estimated $400,000 that the state is keeping, approximately $350,000 of that comes out of the capital improvement fund. So this slide will show a little bit of a breakdown in how we get to these capital projects and the bond issues for them. The City Council approved a couple weeks ago the water meter replacement project currently going on. That was a bond issue that we did. Then there's the stormwater mitigation, Public Works infrastructure improvements, so that's beyond the stormwater and municipal utility fund. So we're talking about $44 million and that's over the life of the CAB for bond issues. And then below that, the IEPA loans. If you recall, last year, a big focus that we talked about was the wastewater treatment plant that is turning over in its useful life and certainly needs a lot of replacement. Paul Burris has been working very hard on that, and I know Public Works has approved a number of projects and a number of designs for that. There are so many, God bless you. There are so many moving parts in that utility, and it's really our largest capital asset, and so we really see the need to maintain that. A few more, again, as Mayor said, we're still talking about stormwater projects, so we reference a couple of them up here. The Southwest infrastructure improvements is the idea that we can move more water to the creek through larger pumps and pipes. So that's a significant item that the Public Works Committee will have to discuss, but I just want the council to recognize it still is in the CAB, and that's a very large portion of that at $22 million. And so I know that the committee wants to evaluate all the improvements that we've made, as we've seen demonstrated over the weekend, and then evaluate what portions of that, how we can phase that in and how we can move forward. Excuse me. And then GO bonds down below that, you have Public Works Phase 3 improvements, which is part of the Public Works garage that needs some improvements, some storm station rehabs, the Metro station, as Mayor said, and then the two potential bike path projects that we have still in the CAB listed up there. So to further break down the CAB, we have the Capital Improvement Fund, which has those kind of departmental project listed up there. I'm not going to run through each one of them. Just quickly, we have the annual street resurfacing program. Just as to get the word out a little bit, we just completed Industrial Drive, the picture on the left. We've received a number of compliments on that, particularly about the sidewalk that has been installed there. Every day we see people on that, and we've talked to some of the property owners up there, and they said it's made a huge change in people's lives up there, because now they can not only just get out for a walk on a break, but they can also get to the restaurants and the grocery store and those type of things, which wasn't as accessible before. On the right, we have Spring Road from St. Charles to Villette as a project. Poplar is in the queue, as is Brush Hill. Brush Hill is necessarily part of an agreement that we made with the county. There's a low portion of that project, of that street, that needs to be raised, and so I know the county has been generous in working with us on when that needs to be done, and so we've certainly plugged that into the CAB to get done. York Street from First to North, and West Avenue from the railroad to St. Charles. As always, we're looking for additional grant dollars to help us with the paving, and there's an opportunity in these two cases to possibly use TIF dollars for a portion of it as well. Couple others, the city parking lot, that's lots that we own, that we look at, and we have to maintain, and the Public Works Committee looks at each time that we proceed to pave it, to see if there's a possibility for some stormwater inclusion in that. And then, of course, IT, which we all know is growing and growing each year. This is a list that, it's in the CAB, so I'm not going to go through it. This is the municipal utility projects over the 5 years that will be funded through IEPA loans. Most of it, of course, is the wastewater treatment plant. Again, to get back to a little more detail on the MUF, on the water side, we've got a number of projects, replacements, hydrants and valves, and of course, the water meter replacement and painting of the remaining 2 water towers. And as I mentioned before, our biggest utility and our biggest asset, the wastewater treatment plant, it needs constant work. It's just come to that life cycle again, to remind everybody that it needs to be updated. Of course, the IEPA is coming out with new mandates every now and then, and so we're incorporating those as they come about and as we can. The parking system fund pays for smaller items such as maintaining the decks, the electric charging stations that we're putting in, and we're proposing, or we're looking at a possible screening wall on the Schiller deck this year for the area that looks out onto the police station. We want to get to that and diffuse any safety concerns that might be out there. As you know, the Schiller deck looks right out onto the Sally Port, and so we're looking at that as just a simple screening to put up on that wall. That'll go through Public Works Committee. And then, again, on the stormwater management, flood mitigation side, we have the property buyout program and the infrastructure improvements that I talked about before, College View as a possibility, and the Christ United Methodist project as well. We also budget in the TIF for a lot of our capital projects. As you can see, there's a number of them up here that we're looking at in each one of the TIF districts. So where do we go from here? As always, first, the Public Works Committee will have a discussion about questions on the projects. Once that's kind of solidified, we roll that into the operating budget, 2 years into the operating budget. We are working on the operating budget right now. Finance Committee is set to review revenues, I believe, at the next committee meeting. Tom? Yes? Thank you. Yes. As I said, the department directors and I are working on the operating budgets. And if you go to the next slide, I think we get to the calendar. So we are looking at the 23rd to the 30th to get that budget to the council. So don't hold us to that 23rd date. We're working on it. It's a little in flux there, just to get everything together, to get the revenue side of it together and all that. So we're going to get that to the council as soon as possible, and then start the review that we do each year here at the council meetings and after committee meetings. So that, in a nutshell, is the capital expenditure budget. I am happy to take your direction.
Absolutely. As city manager said, some of the big projects, well, all the projects, but some of the big ones that are coming get reviewed by, and some of the planning gets reviewed by Public Works. Staff pulls this stuff together, but then runs it by us to see if we agree or have changes or questions. So some of the questions that you might not have been fully vetted at this point. However, does anybody have any initial questions? I believe you got the CAB 2 weeks ago. And city manager provided an overview. Any questions on what you've received or what was reviewed this evening? City manager, you did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Any other reports and recommendations from elected officials? Alderman Dunn, then I'll go to Alderman Bram.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to give a quick update. Thanks for the update on the October 3rd FAA meeting. I attended, represented the city of Elmhurst at the October 6th ONCC full meeting, and just a couple items to note from that. There's been some complaints on the complaint system not working properly, and the technical committee, part of the ONCC, is really diving into that to try to get that remedied. We've heard about that several times. Also at the meeting, District 205 was approved as a member, so that's good to have them aboard on the ONCC with us, the city of Elmhurst. The one thing to note is, and Mayor Morley mentioned that we're going to be in a 2 to 3 year interim condition, contingent on how long it takes to get the environmental study going. And during that time, the diagonal that doesn't impact Elmhurst will go down for about a year. So that could be an issue that needs to go down to finish 9C, which is the main east-west runway that's being installed right now. So that could be a concern on any runway rotation, that our runway 4R22L is the only one there at O'Hare for that time. But we'll keep our eyes on that to make sure that that doesn't impact us too much. Just an update on the runway rotation, Test 3. In August, there was a report giving some of the results of the flight operations. And at August at night, we saw 23% of the takeoffs coming off of 22L, and but only 4% of the landings were landing on 4R. We only had one landing rotation, and I think 2 takeoffs in that month, so that makes sense. There were 26,000 complainants in the month of August, and 300 of those were from Elmhurst. Finally, the budget for the ONCC was discussed. That's about $250,000 for the year, and that's funded by the city of Chicago to pay for that commission. So that's my update. Thanks.
Thanks, Alderman Dunn. Any other reports? Alderman Bram.
Thank you. Just on 2 of the topics that have already been touched on tonight, stormwater and O'Hare. One I just wanted to state, because I don't think it was touched on yet, was that if you haven't filled out the Fly Quiet survey, they have, I believe, extended it to the end of this week. So please feel free to go on oherenoise.org and fill the survey out on behalf of yourself, your family, as well as your neighbors. The other thing on regards to O'Hare, it is true that, as the mayor has already stated, that it may take up to a year for the FAA to do an evaluation, including an environmental impact study. The ONC Fly Quiet Ad Hoc, which hasn't been mentioned yet tonight, they have stated, though, that they would like to have a recommendation to forward that recommendation onward throughout the process by the end of November. So the clock may start ticking shortly thereafter, depending on how long that takes. In regards to stormwater, I actually just have a question. We talked a lot about stormwater. I was just wondering, make sure I don't butcher the name of it, I bring up the website, on did any sanitary waste be taken on by the Southwest Elmhurst Wet Weather Control Facility?
Yeah, our sanitary tank
Correct.
did it take, was it almost full?
It was almost full.
2 million gallons put over there during the storm.
Thank you.
Any other reports or recommendations? You had to be careful. Okay, on to other business. Any other business? Alderman York.
Thank you, Your Honor. On the consent agenda, item number 15 was a resolution that established some employee health insurance contribution rate changes for this year. I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention, the taxpayers and whatnot, that this was a step taken by city management, realizing that health insurance contribution rates needed to be adjusted, and they were upward. And so I just wanted to thank management for taking that step. We still have a very great plan. We have very modest contribution rates, and we're moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Okay, any other business? Motion to adjourn. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Deuter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.